back to Northern California. Surag, welcome back. I'm really interested in, you have a diverse background, engineering and research, product commercialization, prevention, marketing, mobile. I mean, there's a lot of things going on there. Share with us how you evolved into this career.
Yeah, I've kind of let the career come to me, to be honest. I studied engineering. I know, coming out of engineering school, the types of companies that are recruiting were, your Cisco's, your HP's, your really traditional engineering type companies. And coming out of that school, I really, to be honest, got a little bit scared and apprehensive of sitting in a cubicle all day and writing code. And so I went straight to grad school. And then I kind of jumped to the opposite end of the spectrum. I started in data analysis and account management and customer service on the consumer research side of the industry. And that was great. It taught me all the things about dealing with customers and how to make, happy customers is great for the company, of course, and leads to recurring revenues, et cetera. So I spent a lot of time there in consumer research, which was really insightful in terms of giving me a perspective of what's happening in the consumer internet market and the marketing spaces. And then I kind of evolved into kind of getting closer and closer back to the technical world, right? I kind of jumped far away coming out of school, and have slowly over my career kind of evolved back closer and closer to my roots as an engineer. And so I got into marketing and did a lot of B2B kind of new age marketing, what I'd call new age marketing around, thought leadership, content marketing, not really brand marketing, right? I'm not buying billboards, but I'm putting together white papers and infographics and things that help show a business's prowess in the industry, that helps it get marketing through very organic means. And then kind of most recently in product management, in cybersecurity, again, one of those things is, I've kind of evolved and followed leaders and people I've worked with in the past. And that's kind of led me into very kind of hot and growing markets and different responsibilities along the way.
So do you work with everybody from startups to big companies, or who do you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with startups all the way to big companies. I've personally kind of been in, um, you know, a company that started at 50 employees and went through IPO. I was in my last company, started as employee number 3 or 4 here in San Francisco, grew up to 100 in a matter of a year, and the overall company grew from 50 when I started to about 1,000 when I left. And then again, and most recently, again, started with a company about the same size. We were about probably 45 to 50 employees, grew to about 225, got acquired by a 17,000 person company, and now we're part of the larger entity. So I've personally kind of been through each of those, and in terms of working with, same story. We work with companies that are startup, a few guys building a business, building an entity, all the way up to enterprises that have multi-billion-dollar businesses.
Since I've worked in the healthcare industry with clients that in healthcare and medical devices and whatnot needed people to help them commercialize their invention, if you will, or whatnot. There's got to be a lot of challenges and opportunities in what you do and what they did. Can you give us a sense of some of them?
Yeah, that's it's a great question. I think commercializing a product, taking an idea from someone's head into a physical or a software product, and then getting it into market and making it successful are all very different stages of the life cycle, right? For me, being able to have a vision of what this product needs to do from generally the original creator of the idea or the inventor is critical. Is taking the idea, validating, is there a real business need? Are we solving a real problem in the market, not just a perceived problem that I as an inventor believe exists in the market?
Right.
And then you've got to build that solution. You've got to make it easy to use. And then there's so many things that take it from a great product to a successful product. Things that are sometimes out of your control, right? Do you have the right business model in place? Do you have the right pricing in place? Do you have the right partners in place? The biggest one for me that I've come to learn over my last few products is a product conceptually can be great. The business model may seem to make sense. Everything may be perfect. But until you got your first customer, and really your first 2 or 3 customers, it's not successful, right? It doesn't matter how great it seems in this beautiful box. Until you've got a customer or two and you've figured out how to solve their problem, it's going to be very difficult to scale that up, right? And so for me, what I've kind of learned lately is when you build a new product, have a launch customer, a launch partner, someone that's going to help you morph and evolve your idea into something that's going to really solve their problem. And if it's now solved one customer's problem, there's a pretty good chance it's going to solve another 30 customers' problems.
No, that's brilliant, and it's also a great feeling when you've actually sold one, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Just one. The first one is always the hardest, right? And I think that's a critical piece of that's the advice I give to many people I talk to nowadays is don't worry about the first 100. Worry about the first one, and the first one will turn into the first three, and then that'll turn into 30. And then once you've got 30, then you can start thinking about scale.
Well, my typical way, I do the sports analogies. You can't win the championship game until you win the first game of the playoffs.
That's right.
One game at a
That's
time, they
exactly.
say, right? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's awesome. You guys do obviously a lot of fraud prevention, cybersecurity. We talked a little bit about it. I deal with a lot of businesses, again, also small startups to big, and social media has grown incredibly. And what I find is it's so huge that it impacts decision making by the executives, by leaders of businesses. They're almost overwhelmed as to what to do.
Yep.
Um, what's your experience on how it affects business owners in terms of just running their business, but also with respect to the cybersecurity?
Yeah, in terms of running your business, I spent a lot of time in digital marketing as well. And what I've kind of come to learn about social media is it is absolutely critical and one of the biggest impacts, I think, of our generation, right? Of being able to directly converse with a consumer, being able to get immediate feedback on different things, being able to keep a pulse on the market, which historically had been very difficult to do, right? So I'd say that those are kind of some of the benefits. Some of the downside, the difficulties are, the squeaky wheel will get all the attention. You've got to be very careful to understand that your Twitter users or the folks who are using some of these channels represent maybe sub 1 or 2 or 3% of your customer base or your user base, right? So you can't make all of your decisions, your roadmap, your direction of your product based on a couple of very loud folks out there in the social media space, right? So there's always a balance there. However, again, the people in the social media space, especially those on some of these channels, are your influencers, right? And they talk about this all the time, your advocates. If you can message to these folks and keep them happy, then the chain and kind of what the folks that they talk to, the people that they influence, is going to be very beneficial. It's kind of like having your own, secret service out there in the wild helping you out as part of your extended team. So that for me, that's kind of social media in terms of business making, business decision making. In terms of cybersecurity, look, the online channel has opened up so many different and new ways of accessing content, sending sensitive data, receiving sensitive data, logging into bank accounts, transferring money, that we've just got to be more aware, right? As consumers, one of the biggest things that you're going to see happen over the next few years, and it's already happening, is a big part of preventing fraud and cybersecurity issue is educating the average consumer, right? Every single one of us gets spam email every single day with links that we should not be clicking. And it's just going to take a little bit of education from folks to understand, like, guys, if you receive an email from someone you don't recognize and it has an attachment, don't open it, right? Simple things that actually aren't very difficult, but technically are impossible challenges to solve. And so I think a lot of it is going to come down to using things like social media to educate the population on cybersecurity, fraud detection, what it means, and how you can be smart about it without being very complex. Just doing a couple basic things, we can educate the world, and really that's going to help. That's going to go a long ways.
The guys that send that junk mail, though, are getting smarter too.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you hear about these. They don't just call it phishing anymore, right? You hear these articles where they call it spear phishing, where they're going to not just say, "Hey, Mark, click this link." They're going to say, "Hey, Mark." They're going to send you a link on your birthday and say, "Hey, Mark, happy birthday. Here's something for you to click," or "Here's a greeting card for you," right? Because they know your birthday through Facebook, right? It's very simple for them. They can do very intelligent things to be able to make things very specific to you, which makes it even more difficult for us as consumers.
Yeah, you can find things on Facebook pretty easily. It's amazing. I have a lot of clients actually use Facebook for deselecting candidates, by the way.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
bet.
all the time. Hey, we do a fair amount of work with board of directors too. In fact, a lot of board advisory of candidates that want to get on boards, and even boards in respect of how they should operate. I know you've had exposure to boards and working with boards and how they work. What's your insights on what the right fit is on a particular board of directors?
Yeah, for me, a board is always it's kind of like building your executive team in any company, right? You kind of have to have a mix of different people. You've got to have folks who are kind of more. You've got to have people who are risk averse and those who are very courageous and going to try very different risky things. And you've got to have people who are kind of well grounded and people who are trying to do things kind of out of the norm, right? That's just kind of the way it is. Um, and for me, what I'd say, the people that are best on boards is those are going to help fill out that roster in that way. People are going to help you when you need it, think differently, be able to help you understand, look, you've got a product, how else can you commercialize this to drive new streams of revenue potentially? Or look, what open market segment is out there that you haven't even thought of yet that you can go chase after? Or board members are going to do the very kind of the stuff that's going to make you successful, introduce you to the right companies, help you hire like rock star candidates. These are the types of board members you need. And so for me, it really comes down to what's that board you've got missing? Are you missing someone who's going to really help you, challenge you to think differently? Are you missing someone who's going to make sure you're thinking about kind of your day-to-day things like accounting practices and HR practices and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Or are you missing someone who can introduce you to the right people and open up doors for you? And it really is going to vary from company to company.
I think you could be a great chairman of a board. That was awesome. That was very good. Hey, for up and coming leaders, I mean, you've known and you've been good at managing opportunities to advance your career and obviously developing relationships. What do you tell up and coming leaders how important relationships are in for their future and their career?
They're critical, right? I mean, everyone will tell you that. I once read this book called Never Eat Lunch Alone. I don't know if you've heard of this
I
book.
have, yes.
It really opened up my eyes, and it was actually something given to us as we're going through grad school, and they kind of told us all to read this on our way out and said, look, relationships are critical to what you do. Your ability to talk to different people, build relationships. You never know when something's going to come back and be necessary, right? And you also shouldn't count relationships as currency. It's like, Mark, I helped you today. That doesn't mean I should expect you to help me, or that you can't help me again if I need help again 6 months from now, right?
Right.
It's a relationship's a relationship. It's kind of like a two-way thing. You may ask me for help every 3 months, and I may never ask you for anything for 5 years. But at the end of the day, the relationship is critical, and you never know when it'll come in and be valuable. So I think that's a big part of, especially for me being in Silicon Valley, right? I go to meetups, I talk to companies all day long, and even those that we're trying to sell a product to, even if we don't sell them, my objective to them is to be a consultant, right? If I can help them make the right decision, whether it's buying my product or buying someone else's product, in the long way, it's going to help me, in the long run, it's going to help me build that relationship with the customer, and that's really what's going to matter kind of going forward.
Yeah, we actually refine it a little more when you say we talk to companies. We actually play a little semantics and we say it's impossible to talk to a company. We talk to the people at the company.
Right.
And it's a fine tuning, but it's actually because we find people join people, and
Yep.
people hire people, even though we say I joined a company so. But you're 100% right. I couldn't agree with you more. Couple of very personal questions now, very very personal questions.
Sure.
Do you have a pet?
We do not have a pet. My wife and I have debated getting a dog for a few years now, but we never got around to it. So we're about to have kids. I think we're expecting dogs will come after that point, probably hopefully in the next few years.
And they're good for kids for sure. Do you have a favorite activity or sport?
Yeah, I definitely enjoy playing golf. I'm not nowhere near a pro, but it's good to get out there and challenge your kind of attention span and
Patience.
holding your patience. That's right. And yeah, I think those are. I love watching sports. I'm a huge college basketball fan. I went to Duke and I'm a huge Duke basketball fan. But
Awesome.
yeah, I just kind of love the outdoors and playing any sport I can.
Cool. How about do you have a favorite movie or TV show?
Right now, I know a lot of people are on it, but I'm a big fan of Game of Thrones, kind of watching that as it's going on. I know it's up and down and left and right. A lot of people are upset, but that's one. And then I like a lot of kind of detective type shows. So Sherlock and Elementary and those kinds of shows are always interesting to me. Just
I could watch Lucy Liu. I have no problem with that. Um, how about you mentioned the book about never eat lunch alone? You have a favorite book?
Yeah, recently I've really been, I'm really into business books. They're just kind of interesting and help me kind of jog my mind and think about different things. And my last time I was out on vacation, I was reading David and Goliath, and that book is
Mm.
really interesting because it just talks about, it's not always about being the biggest and the best, right? It's just like being clever, being passionate, being driven are equally important to being the biggest guy in the room. And I think we see that every day in business, right? You see these guys come out of nowhere and become Facebooks, right? And become Googles. And there's so many more out there that we're going to see in the next few years.
I
Kind of
I agree. How about music and food?
music, I'm kind of all over the place. I'll listen to anything. I'm pretty easygoing there. Food, I'm definitely a foodie. We cook 5 days a week. We love cooking anything and everything.
Nice.
And when I go on vacation, it's all about kind of finding the best spots to eat and different types of foods we can get. So
Well, it's a delicious way to end it. Thanks so much for participating.
yeah, of course. Thank you.